Hello, and welcome to episode 23 of the Liberty Mastermind podcast. I'm Ox, along with my good buddies Pat and Jack.
Ox, are you sure we're your good buddies? Because you kind of stuttered there a little bit.
Yeah, I started to feel like this coffee thing come up. Yeah,
just your regular buddies.
Very good, very good buddies.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Hey, is it snowing there? It's snowing today.
In Florida?
Yeah. Does it ever snow? No?
It does sometimes. Really rare.
What happens when it snows there? Does everything shut down?
Yeah, people get really confused.
Growing up in
when it gets down to the 60s in Florida,
yeah,
people start bringing out their winter parkas.
It's cold. Well, in North Texas, where I grew up, when we see snowflakes, we're like, "Oh my God, shut everything down! Get the snow plows, get the salt the roads." We don't know what to do.
So today's episode 23 is on microgreens, and this will be fun because I will be a member of the audience that gets to ask Ox questions because I don't know what the hell a microgreen is. And Ox, you can be you and teach and talk. Cool.
Hopefully not stutter and fumble like earlier. Did you have anything, any latest and greatest?
Yeah, since part of Liberty is kind of entrepreneurism, I thought I'd tell you about this really cool dude that's he's building sailboats, and he used the space in his attic to build them and then sell them. Did you hear about that?
What?
Yeah,
No.
His sales are through the roof.
Oh. Oh my God, I didn't see that coming. But
what about you? What do you got going on?
Well, in healthcare, flu season is starting to kind of kick up. I'm hearing and seeing flu is rearing its ugly head. Not that affects me. I work in mental health. Nothing, man. Just enjoying the snow and cleaning up on the homestead today. Yeah, no new news.
All right.
Microgreens.
Let's get rocking and rolling. Tell me about what is a microgreen.
Yeah, I'll kind of give my version of it. You might find some purists out there or some people who spend way more time in this than me, define it maybe a little differently. I don't know, but I kind of see it in between a sprout. I think we're all kind of familiar with sprouting. Take a seed, you kind of put it in moisture for few days, and then it sends out a root, and you can eat those. And then you've got a plant that grows out to an adult size. We've all tried to do that. Things die. Oh, I don't have a green thumb. Well, the thing that I like about microgreens is, to me, it's kind of in between the sprout and a fully grown out plant. It is, you take a seed, and you can do this in soil, and I think some people do it hydroponically, but you grow it out about anywhere from 7 to 14 days, something like that. I think the average might be about 9 or so is typically what I'm looking at. But you take that seed and you grow it out about 9 days, and then you harvest it. And it's almost foolproof. You do not have to have a green thumb. Going back sort of bigger picture, maybe even tying into last episode with Jake Fuller, we kind of touched on homesteading stuff. The thing that I like about this is, when I got into looking at a cash flow quadrant, like Robert Kiyosaki's, your inputs and your outputs, your money in, your money going out for bills and stuff like that. I was thinking, how can I minimize my food financial liabilities? I was looking at the money going out, and I spend quite a bit on groceries, and I was thinking, well, where's some of that money going to? And a lot of it was going to vegetables like roots and fruits and lettuce and stuff like that. And so I was like, well, is there any way I can kind of grow stuff at home and save on the grocery bill? and I discovered microgreens. And again, it's super foolproof. We're going to kind of go over the general process, and you can look into it and modify it. But here's some highlights of microgreens. Actually, let me back up. Let's talk about the benefits of microgreens. To my understanding, they have a higher nutrient content than a fully grown plant. They have a really good shelf life if you take care of it. You harvest it at about 9 days or so. You put it in a little Tupperware, make sure it's dry, and kind of poke holes in the Tupperware, and it'll keep for approximately 2 weeks in some cases. And that makes me think of the stuff that I buy at the grocery store, like the organic lettuce leaves, the organic spinach, in those big pound containers. That stuff turns to mush in like 3 or 4 days. But these microgreens can keep for about 2 weeks, and they're really good. So higher nutrients, they have a really good shelf life. They're very tender. So you harvest them, again, approximately 9 days. You harvest them before they get all cellulosey, like before they get all tough. So they're very tender. I heard them compared to the veal. They're the veal of the plant kingdom. So how veal is a young animal, and you process it, and it's very tender meat. Well, similar thing with the microgreens. It's the veal of the sort of the plant kingdom. It's very good. Some of the most common places to start with microgreens, or the most common seeds, are pea, sunflower, and radish. So, like the pea that you grow in the garden, sunflower, like your sunflower seeds, and then radish. Those are the most common. That's where I started. And beyond that, people grow out herbs. They grow out vegetables. They grow out edible flowers. So to give you an example, I'm a huge cilantro fan. In fact, I had fajitas for dinner, and I grew out cilantro. And you can do that in microgreen form. It's a little kind of tricky, but you can do that. Some people will grow out like corn, and it kind of tastes like popcorn, or it tastes like corn. And you can kind of grow out things that you would think of as like a full vegetable, like corn on the cob or something like that. And you can grow it out, harvest it young, and it tastes pretty much like the adult version. It's pretty good. Let's see. What can you do with it? I kind of touched on the most common. Again, pea, sunflower, radish, typical place to start. What can you do with these, things that are like 9 days old, harvested pretty young? What do you do with it? This is where the magic happens. This is where my mind kind of gets blown with microgreens. You can make them into a salad. You can kind of come up with creative blends. You can add them to a salad. So, it's an adjunct, or you just add it in, or it can just be the whole darn thing. I don't typically eat really large amount of salads. So for me, like a handful of microgreens with some dressing, it's awesome. You can put them on a sandwich. Like when I was growing up, I had sandwiches, and they had little like sprouts on them, and they were amazing. Well, you can put them kind of on a sandwich. You can put them in a soup. I mentioned you can grow out herbs. Grow out some basil. Get your microgreen basil and put it in tomato soup or something like that. Next one, I'll come back to that one on my list here. You can actually grow them out like wheatgrass. You can grow it out and feed it to your animals. If you have, say, guinea pig or other animals, quail, chickens, they will eat that. How about juice? Again, with the wheatgrass example, you can grow out wheatgrass, harvest it, and then juice it. It's not really been my thing, but those health food shops that do the smoothies and whatnot, they do the wheatgrass shots. Well, you can do that yourself. I actually will walk over, especially with sunflowers. Oh my God, I will walk over and just kind of pick out a handful right out of the soil, just kind of pinch them off, and you can kind of snack on them. So, I'm doing something around the homestead, kind of want something to snack on, something crisp. I'll go over and just kind of pinch off a bunch of the sunflowers. You can snack on it. It's really good. Now, the big one, and I think it ties into, stuff that we like to talk about, like to learn about side hustling.
Mm-hmm.
There are plants. There are plants that you can grow and get paid money per ounce. Some of them are legal and some of them are illegal. So the cool thing about microgreens is you can make pretty good money per ounce, unlike other stuff that might get you a state-funded vacation, courtesy of you get me. So if you want to turn this into a side hustle, there's plenty of information out there on how to sell microgreens. You can sell them to restaurants, chefs, farmers markets and stuff like that. There's plenty of information out there. I never really got into it, but I do know people sell it for anywhere between 3, 4, 5, maybe a little bit more per ounce. 3, 4, $5 per ounce of microgreens. High quality microgreens can kind of command about that much from what I've seen. And if you want to do some quick math, you might think of a rule of thumb as a tray, a very common tray, a 10 by 20. They call it 10 by 20. A 10 by 20 tray of your average microgreen might give you a pound. So do the math on that. $4 or $3 even times a pound. That's pretty good yield. That's pretty good return on the investment, which I'll kind of get into the cost in a little bit. So, we covered my sort of definition, what it is, where's the common stuff, what you can do with it. There's some other kind of ideas of what you can do with it, but let's get into the ingredients. Like, what is the recipe for doing this? So here are the ingredients. I've got 7 of them on my list. So the first one is you obviously need some seeds. You will probably need to buy them in bulk. If you're going to get into this, I'd probably recommend just starting out, kind of getting pound of seeds, maybe even 5 pound if you got a good deal. But I got my seeds starting out on Mountain Valley from a company called Mountain Valley. It's a pretty common place to start. It's mvseeds.com. So that's the first thing. Second thing, trays. Probably the most common is a 10 by 20. It's a 10 inches by 20 inches tray, plastic. They're super flimsy, at least the ones I've seen. But it's the most common place to start. Other people, might do a cookie baking tray or some other sort of deep dish type thing, but super common place to start is the 10 by 20 tray. You can get them on Amazon. Third thing, soil. And I kind of went the organic, the super expensive stuff. You can get it probably from your local nursery, or you can definitely get it on Amazon. It's called Fox Farm. I think they sell this stuff to like people who grow weed, like as in marijuana weed. This stuff is pretty expensive. But I wanted to kind of get from what I understand is the best soil to start out with. And so you need soil. You can get it online, or you could even, depending on what you want to grow the microgreens for, you could just go out in your backyard and grab some soil, maybe from your compost pile. But soil is the third ingredient. 4 is light. And the thing that I think is super cool about microgreens for me is you can grow them indoors or outdoors. And if you grow them indoors, you can control the environment really well, like the temperature, the lighting. You can keep critters away, like flies and stuff like that. Some people grow them outdoors, if you're in the right climate for that, especially in the summer. It's pretty common to kind of grow them outdoors, maybe in a greenhouse, just maybe out in the open. I grow them indoors because, like I said, I want to control the environment better and make sure like little creepy crawlies and stuff don't get in with the plant. But compact fluorescent light like CFLs, just fluorescent lighting is pretty common. Some people use LED. I just use fluorescent lighting. That's kind of where I started. Number five, you just need love and a little bit of time input. It needs your love and attention, and time input. So the biggest time input is going to be on the front end when you're kind of setting everything up, and even that's not very much. And then kind of a little bit if you grow it indoors, for example, a little bit per day, just kind of peeking at it, making sure it looks good, saying hello, making sure the soil is moist, whatever.
Playing some
Number
sweet
six,
music in the background.
maybe some sweet music. Yeah, some Barry Manilow or some Pearl Jam. I don't know. What do you what are you listening to right now?
Um, I,
Nothing.
dude, when I think sweet music, I think Marvin Gaye. I can't help but not think that.
Marvin Gaye. Let's get it up, or whatever he sings. Number six, electricity. That is, if you are growing it indoors, if you're in the right climate, right type of year, you can do it outdoors, saving electricity. And number seven, some sort of shelving or something to set up the 10 by 20 tray on. You can go down to your local hardware store, Lowe's, Home Depot, whatever, get that 4 or 5 tiered shelving for like, 40, $50, something like that, or build it yourself. You really don't even need 4 or 5 tiers. You can do one or two, but just shelving, somewhere to put the microgreens. I got the 4 or 5 tiered shelving and kind of set up some lights. So 7 ingredients, and the process is super straightforward, super easy. So you take your tray. Step number one: take your tray, fill it with soil, and this is where you're going to have to kind of adjust and play with it. But I guess a rule of thumb would be put enough soil in the 10 by 20 tray to definitely cover the bottom, but maybe an inch, because it can kind of pack down. Then you tamp down the soil. Then you put the seeds on. I'll just use pea seeds as an example, but just kind of sprinkle the seeds, and you're gonna have to kind of adjust and play with it to figure out how much seed per tray you need to do. There are plenty of Facebook groups out there that kind of drill into and talk about, hey, I use 2 ounces per tray or of peas, or I use 1 ounce of lettuce seeds or whatever. So you're gonna have to adjust it. But you put your seeds down, then you cover the seeds with like a paper towel. Some people use parchment paper, but I just use paper towel starting out. And then you put your water on. Again, another thing you're going to have to kind of adjust, but I just use a cup of water actually maybe a cup and a half per 10 by 20 tray starting out. And then the paper towel is to kind of hold the moisture in, but also if you stack another 10 by 20 tray on top, you don't want everything to stick to the bottom of the tray. So it kind of helps make sure, the seeds don't stick to the bottom of the trays when you stack them. The next thing you do, assuming you're doing multiple trays, is you're going to stack them. And the idea of stacking them is, the analogy that I learned is, you want to think of the seeds when they're first, for the first like 3 days, when they're first like germinating, they're stacked. So there's that pressure on the soil, on the seeds, and they have to kind of go against that resistance. So, like when you go to the gym, I know, Pat, you're a big gym guy, when you're doing when you're doing those big, those barbell or dumbbell curls, there's resistance against your arm. Well, similar thing with the seed. You want to have resistance kind of pushing them down, so they have to go against it and grow. At least that's, that may be total BS, but that's the analogy that was taught to me. You want to stack them up. And after about, let's say, rule of thumb, maybe 3 days or so, you'll see the shoot kind of poking out the side. That's when it's kind of ready to unstack them. But about 3 days, then you unstack them, and then you put them under the light, whether that's natural lighting outdoors or artificial lighting under your fluorescent light. And then you just kind of get them squared away, and then monitor them each day. Make sure the moisture level is good. I might add a half to 1 cup of water per day. Just again, one thing you're going to have to check on. Keep them under the lights. I put them under the grow lights, the fluorescent light, for about maybe 16 hours a day. You can kind of poke around and see what the recommended is for whatever you're growing, but pretty long grow period. And the harvesting is pretty easy. You just, after about 9 days, depending on what you're growing, grab a handful, get a very sharp knife, and then you just cut them above the soil line, maybe an inch above the soil line, and you've got your harvest. From what I was taught and the way I do it is I don't water one day before I know I'm going to harvest. So there's not moisture, collected on the microgreens, but, grab the handful, you just kind of cut using a really good knife about an inch above the soil. Then you can store them. And again, the storage, put them in a Tupperware, poke some holes in it. They will keep in the fridge anywhere from 14 days to even up to maybe 3 weeks, depending on what you have and how well they were taken care of. But they store really well. And again, the key is no water about 24 hours before you harvest. That way they're drier when you harvest them. And after that, last step is enjoy them, trade them, sell them, do whatever. Some kind of keys or final thoughts on the process is you're going to have to play with the amount of seed that you put per tray, to get the right density, so keep your ledger, keep your book, your journal, whatever, with how much soil you're putting in, how much seed you're putting in. You're going to have to kind of adjust the amount of water. And you can really scale it up. If you get super into this, one thing to keep in mind for going forward is like automation. How can I automate my lights coming on and off? How can I automate the water? That's can be a time saver. Again, there's not a whole lot of time investment, but you might incorporate some automation in this. So what are the costs? These are some of the cost examples for what I've done. They're probably going to be higher numbers than you could find. I just wanted to get something quickly. I didn't shop around too much. But in my example, I got 5 pounds of the organic pea seeds, and that was like $14. I got 10 of the 10 by 20 trays for $20 online. So that's $2 a tray. That's some of you out there are probably like, oh my God, that's super expensive. Yeah, I just wanted to get them quickly. So again, I didn't shop around. Lights, I got these really nice, let's see, are they T5 or T8? The fluorescent lights online, they were like $65. Kind of expensive. I'm sure you can find them way, less than that. Soil, I think it was 2 cubic feet of that Fox Farm soil. It was like $42. Again, it's the organic, pretty top of the line stuff as far as I can tell. Then you need to take into consideration electricity. So I'm doing 54 watt bulbs, 2 of them at 16 hours a day. So I don't know what the cost of electricity is at the moment, but that's just an example of what I'm using. 54 watt bulbs, 2 of them, 16 hours a day. And if you want to kind of zoom in and look at the per tray cost, seed is about $1.20 using what I got for pea seeds per tray. So $1.20 per tray. The tray in the example is $2. Super expensive. That's not going to be a recurring cost. That's just a kind of one-time cost. Soil, I did the math on the soil. It was just under $2. Then you got to think about some electricity and lights and stuff like that. But per tray, I'm looking at about $5 per tray. And again, I can get about a pound of plant material per tray. So that's about what those pound containers, those clamshell containers at the grocery store that are organic and, all that good stuff. It's about the same as those costs, but I think my quality is going to be much better. the microgreens are going to last much longer than the leaves, that you get at the grocery store. And again, you can do a whole lot of stuff with them. You can barter them, you can sell them. There's a whole bunch. Again, I started this because I wanted to bump up the quality of the food that I'm eating. I wanted things to last longer. If I make some adjustments at the cost per tray, I can find less expensive seeds. I can, start doing my own soil. I won't have a recurring cost on the tray. I can really get the cost per tray down. And so I'm roaring along at, maybe $2 a tray. So like $2 for a pound of really good, plant. So, and it's going to last a long time. So that's kind of how my thought process is when I'm thinking about, increasing my liberty. We call it the Liberty Mastermind podcast. And another way to think about liberty is, well, how can I minimize some of my costs? How can I be less dependent on, say, the grocery store? Not that the grocery store is bad. I mean, I love going grocery shopping, but how can I be less dependent on that? How can I be more autonomous, in my food and get better quality? So those are the kind of things that are going through my mind when I'm doing this. And again, there's a whole bunch of applications. Another thing that I didn't think of, or I didn't mention earlier, is it can save time. The plants that you get from the grocery store, they don't last terribly long. So you might have to be heading up to the grocery store, maybe a couple times per week. Well, if you're doing this at home, that can save you time going to the grocery store, because you just walk over and kind of harvest whatever you need. And it's fun. It's very neat to do the process that I mentioned and see, you're involved in the process. You start the process, you harvest the material, you harvest the plant, and it's like, man, I'm involved in this. You probably heard one of my birds. I'm involved in this process, and I don't know, to me, that's kind of magical. We kind of touched on it with Jake Fuller in last episode.
I was going to say that, yep.
Yeah, it's kind of magical it's different when you just go to the grocery store and you're like, here's my pound of organic leaves and I'm gonna make a salad with it, whatever. But when you are involved in the process, man, it's very interesting. So that's everything in kind of a nutshell. I hope that's pretty clear, or at least clear enough to kind of get the ball rolling. Maybe people can get the ball rolling. Now, where it gets really fun, maybe I can talk about an extension, kind of that's where I started. But for me, the fun also is in where you can extend this to. And, I don't have, we're not doing video of this, but I've got this poster board in front of me, and I've got this sort of flow, this flow diagram. If you think about input and output, the inputs in this process are, what I mentioned, the soil, the seed, water, light, your time, and the outputs. This is where it gets interesting, and you can start linking a bunch of stuff together. And we touched on it in that episode with Jake Fuller. But the outputs, when you're done, after you've harvested your microgreens, you've got this thick mat of soil and then roots. Well, most people might think of, that as, oh man, that's just waste. I just put it in the trash. Well, when you get into homesteading, and Pat, I think, we've kind of learned this thought process from Jack Spirko, kind of looking at things differently. Well, that's, to a homesteader, that's not waste. You can take that and give that mat of roots and go give it to your birds, and they will pick through it, and they're like, oh heck yeah, roots, and they'll pick through it, and that's their meal, right? So it's that output, that waste can kind of go in something else. Again, kind of continuing the thread about outputs, you've got the microgreens, which is an output. You can use some for yourself, and if you've got surplus, well, you can give it away. You can sell it. You can barter. There's a whole bunch that you can do with it. You could scale it up once you refine everything and turn it into a side hustle. I can think of a fellow TSPer who does this full time on the East Coast. Um, I don't know if I should mention his name, but anyway, uh, you know, someone who is part of a much larger community that we're in. He does this full time. He's got a bunch of restaurants and he just goes around selling microgreens. It's kind of the main thing. He also does duck eggs and quail eggs, but he does this full time and he makes really good money doing it. So this is just kind of an introductory thing. Maybe get your wheels, spinning and get the juices flowing. There's a whole lot you can do with this. There's a lot of ways you can link in this process to other things. One final example that I'm looking at, I didn't mention is, you've got that soil waste, quote unquote waste or output. Well, some people will take that and kind of put it back into the process and redo it over. I know some people are for that, some people are against that, but you can sort of recharge it maybe or reuse it. You might even go put it outside in your compost bin or, your compost pile. Let your birds pick through it or just leave it out there, kind of start a pile of soil. So it starts to get interesting, at least to me. But that is microgreens in a nutshell. Did you have any questions or anything jump out at you? I know I went super fast. I get kind of fired up.
I got all these bullet notes here. We're going to plug into the article today.
Okay.
I could tell you my extensive knowledge about plants is that I have owned almost 10 basil plants in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that I had that lasted the longest is my current one, and we're at about 2 months right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions about how to water a basil plant or how to eat basil from a basil plant, I'm your man.
We'll do a segment on basil.
That is my my extensive knowledge of plants. That's it. That's the limit right there.
Well, if I know I went super fast. Just some brief takeaways. Again, this is not a huge time suck. It doesn't take a whole lot of time to be involved in this. Maybe a little bit on the front end, kind of getting all the ingredients of the recipe, maybe a little bit kind of setting up the trays and whatnot. But per day, you're just doing a brief little check, maybe putting in some water. It's very minimal time input. Costs, the barrier to entry is minimal. But I think long term you can save on your grocery bill. I think you can bump up the quality of the food that you're eating. And again, surplus, you can give it away to friends. You could sell it, you could barter it. There's a whole lot you can do with this. So those are some takeaways that I think are very key in terms of beefing up our self-sufficiency, self-reliance, our autonomy, saving on our bills. So yeah, microgreens in a nutshell.
I love it. This is going to be, I guess, a heavy link or heavy bullet point article. We're going to put a bunch of stuff on the website to list out. I really think we should do some pictures, lots of pictures, because when you were describing this in the beginning, I was confused. Mm-hmm. I was like, so they grow sideways? No. So yeah. We'll find some good pictures and we'll plug them into the website.
Yes, sir.
And I'm happy with that. I think that's a freaking great episode with some really cool stuff in it. I would love to get started on my own microgreens.
It's super easy. You do not have to have a green thumb. This is almost foolproof. So get out, start playing around with this stuff, everybody. If you have questions about this or anything else that we've done, or maybe you have a suggestion for a topic, like send us an email, go to libertymastermindpodcast.com, send us an email and send us your questions, maybe your topics. Let us know what you would like to learn more about.
Oh shit, Jack's going to kill us. Oh, if you would like to be interviewed on the Liberty Mastermind podcast, go over and hit up our guest form on the website, fill that out and shoot it to us, and that goes straight to our email inbox.
Yeah, and one final thing. Again, we appreciate the feedback we're getting about the show. We got a comment on iTunes, rating and review from, I don't know if this is a man or woman, but XDERIWX Zetterwix. I don't know, but
Sounds
it's
cool. I like it.
it's a yeah, it's a rating and review, kind of some feedback about the sound quality, which we're continually trying to improve and make adjustments to. So thank you for the feedback. And again, if you're listening on iTunes, please go to the find us there and rate and review the show. We appreciate that, and we do appreciate the feedback on the show. One thing, Pat, whenever I go to what are we using, Libsyn? Whenever I go there and kind of look at what's going on with the episodes, I'm seeing, dude, people are listening to us from all over. Like, I've seen people from like South Africa,
That's crazy.
Germany, Sweden, different places in Europe, Mexico. Like, I see that, I'm like, whoa, mind blown. And granted, I don't, maybe it could be a virtual protected network IP address. I don't know, but still, man, we're just all over. People are listening to us from all over. It's very cool. Yeah, let us know where you're listening from. I'd love to know that.
Ready to close out today?
Let's close it.
You do it. I like listening to you do it.
Well, well, if you found value in my very speedy overview of microgreens, please share this episode with friends, with family, with those who might kind of want to be introduced to the idea of, how can I beef up the quality of the food that I'm eating and decrease my costs? Please share it with them. You can find us on libertymastermindpodcast.com. We're on iTunes, our Twitter. I have not been drinking, by the way. Our Twitter handle, dude, finish that.
I'll do it. I got this. On Twitter, you can find us at the Liberty3. Me personally, Pat, I'm on Instagram at Uncensored Tactical. Jack's at ResQJack. I'll type that up in his bio on the website. And if you found some value, again, subscribe to the website and subscribe on whatever platform you're on listening to us. Thanks so much for checking us out. We hope to see you again next week.
Have a good one.
You could do microgreen salad. You can do regular salad with microgreens. Microgreen bubble gum.
Microgreen sandwich.
Microgreen stew.
Soup. Microgreen garnish.
Microgreen toothpaste.
Juice. You can snack on the microgreens.
You can eat them right out the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Microgreen mac and cheese. That does sound good, actually.
Microgreen on your pizza. Man,
microgreen pizza.
I could not say Twitter. I was like Twizzler.
Twiddle. My Twiddle handle. Twiddle hander. Twitter hander.
Oh my God.